What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the next episode of the podcast, Sitting Tall, with me, Casey Ellen, and my boy, Tony Chamberlain. And today we have a special guest. He was born and raised in the Bronx. Now, where you live in, Jose?
In Florida, South Florida.
In South Florida. Welcome to the podcast. He's an author. He's a model, husband, advocate, speaker. He's got the list goes on and on. So thank you so much for being on the show, making some time to come and talk with us a little bit.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Thank you for letting me hang out with you and your audience today. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem, man. We're always trying to get people who are doing, good things in the community, and then, just, representing our disabled community in the right way. And, we let some walking folks come on here sometimes, depending on how good.
Overall humans.
Yeah, overall good peeps. All good peeps.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't mind, we usually like to start, like, if you could tell us how or what the situation was that led you to be in the chair, if that's, if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was 3 years old, my parents noticed that I had a little limp in my walk, and everybody thought it was cute. They were like, "Oh, look at him. He walks like a little tough guy."
Mm-hmm.
And then they started noticing that the limp wasn't going away. So, my parents got concerned. They took me to the doctor to get me, tested. And they did a muscle biopsy. They took a little piece of muscle out of my quad and out of my calf. And they diagnosed me with spinal muscular. Actually, they misdiagnosed me first. They thought I had Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And then they wound up re-diagnosing me correctly with spinal muscular atrophy. And so for those of you who don't know what that is, basically, I was born without the gene that produces the protein that our bodies need to be able to function properly and stay strong and sustain itself. And so there's two copies of that gene. The one is the main copy, which is called the SMN1, and then the backup copy is the SMN2, which stands for Survival Motor Neuron 1 and 2. One is the main, 2 is the backup. I don't have any copies of the main one, but I have 3 copies of the backup copy, the SMN2 gene. So my body does produce protein, but not enough to stay strong. So, the doctor said I'd be in a wheelchair by the age of 15, and they weren't even expecting me to live past my teenage years. But praise God, this year, actually just last week, I celebrated my 48th birthday.
Ooh,
so I'm excited about that.
Belated.
And I actually didn't end up in a wheelchair until I was 22. So prior to that, I was able to do, I lived a normal childhood. I was able to walk, run, ride bike. I played sports, baseball, basketball, handball. Puerto Rican from the Bronx, you got to play handball.
You got to play handball.
and so, yeah, I had a great childhood. But when I was in high school, that's when, I started feeling the condition take over my body a little bit. It wasn't really heavy, but it started to become more difficult for me to go from like a sitting to a standing position, going up the stairs, bending over to tie my shoe, lifting my arms up to put my shirt on. Anything basically that was going against gravity started becoming more difficult for me to do.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, that's, my backstory in the beginning when I was a kid and what was happening. My parents didn't really take too much, to it because I was able to walk and run to a certain extent. I wasn't a fast walker, but runner, but I was like, I guess you could say I would run like a fast jog.
Okay.
Or maybe like how somebody speed walks. That would be like my running.
Okay.
And so, they really didn't pay too much mind to it because I lived a quote unquote normal life, childhood life, but once I started losing my ability to walk, I was still independent. I was still able to do everything on my own. It would just feel like there was more weight to my body. Like if I had to lift my arm to put my shirt over my head, it just like started feeling like my arm was like weighed a ton instead of just, being able to lift it up right quick. Yeah, heavy, exactly. And then when I moved from New York to Florida, and literally shortly after that, like 2 or 3 months after I moved down, I lost my ability to walk because at that time I would use a little scooter. Because I still was in denial of the whole situation and I didn't want to like accept the whole wheelchair thing. So I would use the little scooter that I would use to get around, and I parked up next to my mom's sofa to watch some TV. So I was still able to take a couple of steps on my own, but I couldn't walk far distances. So like if I would leave the house or if I would go from like one room to another, so I wouldn't fall, I would use the little scooter. And so just those little couple of steps from the scooter to the sofa, man, I'm 6 foot tall. My leg gave out. I fell straight down on my right foot and broke all the toes in my foot, bro. That was the worst thing in my life.
Oof.
And so you know what they say, if you don't use it, you lose it, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
according to Steve Carell and 40-Year-Old Virgin, that is a fact.
And so like about 3 or 4 months after that, when my foot healed up, because you can't put a cast on your toes, you just got to let it take its course. My dad tried to lift me back up of my scooter, and that's when like reality of SMA, the ugly reality of it hit, and I was like, oh snap, this is crazy. Like I can't even stand up no more.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was a dark moment in my life, man. I was depressed a little bit, crying all the time. Like, man, am I gonna have to live with my parents the rest of my life? Is a woman ever gonna love me like this? Am I
Yeah.
gonna have kids? Am I gonna be able to work or drive a car again? Because I was able to drive. Like all of these different thoughts were going through my mind, and I'm just like lost, bro. I'm lost because I'm like, you go from being independent to now having to be dependent for things that you normally didn't think twice about doing, and now like I'm in a whole new different situation. That was a mouthful, so I'll pause and see if you guys have any.
Yeah, no, man. It's we like you sharing. I'm captivated just listening to the whole. Like, I didn't know anything about the SM1,
I didn't know.
2. I had
Too.
like I've heard of muscular dystrophy, but I never heard of this one before.
Yeah,
And it's just it's crazy to hear. Like you said you were doing all right, and then as soon as you broke your foot, and then you take a few weeks off, and it's like, oh shit, like my body just is like, all right, you're not walking no more, so now you ain't walking no more.
yeah,
And because me and Tony talk about that all the time with the whole, you know, not really, we lose stuff you don't really expect to lose, and it's stuff we take for granted. And because we both, Tony, what you're going on 6 years now?
6 years. Yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna go on my 12th this year of being in the wheelchair, so we can kind of relate a little bit to how the shell shock of it all, just like
Yeah.
having to
Hmm.
accept the new normal that we live.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
have a
yeah.
good question since like we're up to the point of like where you were talking about like where you felt like in a dark space and like everything started changing. In your mindset, like if you can actually kind of go back, because it's hard to go back, but like in your mindset, like at that point, did you kind of think like I know you kind of said like, oh, am I going to be able to live a normal life, like be able to have a wife or kids or whatever, you know what I mean? And that mindset, like what made you like really like change your everything around, saying like oh, I can do this, I can be me, and like push on and everything. Like where point of your life was that like more come to light?
Little
So
switch.
yeah, it took a couple of months. You know what I mean? It wasn't something that happened fairly fast, but I've always been a positive person. I've always been a motivated, driven person. And I knew I was going to snap out of it. But, when you're in the thick of it, it's almost like when you hear somebody tell you something, it's almost like it's easier said than done. In my mind, I knew I was going to get through it. But in the actual moment of that reality, that I'm in the storm and I'm dealing with it, like I'm upset, I'm angry, I'm hating everybody. I'm hating the world. I'm like questioning my, like, even giving my parents attitude. Like I was born like this. It wasn't
Yeah,
like I got into an accident, probably like maybe you guys. I don't know what your story is, but
yeah,
I didn't get into an accident or nothing bad happened to me. I was born like this. So I'm questioning my faith, God, my parents, like
everything.
blaming them. And I'm
Mm.
mad at the world and angry. And it was tough, man. I did a lot of rebellion and but it got to the point where I was on disability assistance. I was getting disability checks, and I got to the point where I quickly realized that you can't live a life based off of $863 a month. So I learned real quick. I was like, man, you got to go and get a job or something, bro, because
Not
this
even in
is
Florida.
yeah, exactly. This isn't working for you. And so I got a job, and that's where I met my wife. We were on the same team. We were in the hospitality industry. We worked for a major hotel company, and we were on the same team. And one thing led to the next, and I built up the courage and asked her to be my Valentine, and she said
Oh,
yes. And then I hit her with the New York swag, and it was a
yeah.
wrap after that.
That Florida girls ain't prepared for the New York swag.
It was
Are you Puerto Rican?
yes,
Yeah, I can tell. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm half Puerto Rican. My dad was born in the Bronx.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, over by like Fordham Ave and like Morris. Like I think he went to Morris High School back in the day. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
Fordham was my old stomping ground, man. So I'm very, very aware of Fordham Road.
how long you been married, if you don't mind me asking?
So this year we're going to be making 18 years married.
Ooh, God bless. God
Yeah,
bless.
we've been together for 22 years. We have two kids together,
Look at
and
man.
two healthy boys. I mean, God knew what He was doing, man, because He knew I was going to need some help. My wife was going to need some help, and
Yeah, yeah.
they're good, healthy boys, man, good boys. So I'm blessed. And, it goes back to the whole, when you're going through the storm and you know what to expect, what's going to happen, what's the next play, right?
Yeah.
you just automatically start thinking the worst. And that was a process. I was thinking the worst. I'm beating myself up. I didn't need nobody to tell me that I wasn't gonna amount to nothing, or you're not gonna be able to be great in life. You're a nobody. You're, undervalued. I undervalued myself, because I'm looking at myself like a man.
Yeah.
Like, you're broken now, bro. I'm like, got it all wrong with me, man. I feel like you got to return the sender and do me over. Like, I
Hmm.
felt like this wasn't fair. I felt like it wasn't my fault. I'm wondering why me. The question that we always have is like the why me question.
Yeah.
And then, you get to a point in life where you start to understand the why a little bit, right? I guess we don't ever fully know what the real why is until we meet our maker. But I feel like I know what my why is. I know what my purpose is in life. And, sometimes God has a real interesting way of allowing things to happen to us that we're able to use and turn around to a positive and to other people, because I can't even begin to tell you, man, like being born like this, I get a lot of questions sometimes from people that'll say, if you could do it all over again, or would you rather be walking? And I'm like, well, of course I would be able to walk, right? Who wouldn't want that? But knowing what I know now, looking hindsight, I probably wouldn't change it, because to be honest with you, going through all of these challenges and struggles, man, it's, man, get emotional sometimes, because, and I'm guys can relate, but I know I'm impacting lives, man. I
Yeah.
know I'm touching people. I know I'm helping people to, transform their own way of thinking, their own perspective about things in life. and and I see it in real time, man. And I, like, since I've started my speaking career and traveling and all of that, I've had like 3, maybe 4 people reach out to me or come up to me after an event and tell me that they were planning on committing suicide, and because they heard my story, they decided to change their mind and keep pushing and keep
Oof.
fighting. And this is able-bodied people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
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 And so, hearing something like that, man, you can't put a price on that. And the fact that God is able to use somebody like me, who most of the world would look at as insignificant or undervalued, and I'm helping to literally save lives,
Yeah.
man, that's an amazing feeling, bro. And I know that God's purpose for me is to just, do what I'm doing now and just putting myself out there, be vulnerable, be authentic, be transparent, especially in a world full of fluffiness and fugazis and, people just trying to, chase every shiny object. And,
Yeah.
I get it, right? We all want to be successful, right? We all want to reach some level of success, and success is different and my whole purpose and goal is that, I have a bunch of accolades, man. I know you mentioned some of my titles earlier, but at the end of the day, man, I'm just a messenger of hope. You know what I mean? I just want to be a messenger of hope everywhere I go, to everybody I meet, and let them know that, and show them that hope is alive and well. And no matter what challenges life, throws at you, and or struggles away, that you can get through it. We have the capacity and we have the strength to get through anything that can happen to us in life. Because I mean, you guys know, as a man, I don't know what level of you guys have, but I can't even move my arms. I can't even wipe my own butt. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
I feel like when you get to that point in life, when you felt like you've lost your dignity and you've able to
Yeah.
overcome that and move forward, man, nothing embarrasses me no more. Nothing makes me feel less than. I'm like, man, I done been through the ringer, bro. I've been through the
Yeah.
dirt, the mud, everything. And I'm like, hey, you know, as a man, and you got to ask for certain things for help that men are not supposed to ask for.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, whatever life got for me after this point is gonna be easy breezy for me, because I know how to survive. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I came to the wiping the butt thing, bro. Once they take that away from you, it's like, woo, like, okay, they ain't much else.
Yeah.
That's
What else can you ain't got nothing else
yeah.
to lose but your
It's
life? Yeah,
it's
after
like,
that, right?
exactly. You can check them out because
I,
oh, go ahead, Tom.
I was gonna say, you're such on a good flow, and I don't want to ever interrupt her,
Yeah.
I guess. But kind of rewinding in my brain, like a lot of things you have to say about, like, changing people's lives and everything like that. I think that's one of the reasons why we do this podcast too. Like, because when me and Casey first started doing this, we're like, listen, we want to just have guests on here and enjoy like conversation and everything like that. But slowly, as we start to keep building this podcast, I'm noticing that a lot of our guests have like really great things to say, and I'm glad that we have this platform to put out there to, maybe to reach somebody that needed to see this or needed to hear what we're talking about. And that's why I'm very thankful for having you on the podcast. And hopefully we can keep this thing going and everything like that. I love your story. I love everything about you, man. I'm glad that, like, just like you said, everybody needs to find a dark place to find the light also. You know what I mean? So like, that's a great turnaround for you. And look where look where you are now. It's great.
Yeah, man. And again, I appreciate you guys for doing what you do because we need like you out there, not only sharing your own stories, but sharing other people's stories as well, because it is an inspiration and you never know who's going to hear it. You never know whose heart it's going to touch. You never know whose ears are going to be opened or eyes are going to be opened or minds going to be expanded because of something you guys say or one of your guests say or I say, and that can say, man, I heard that podcast from these guys and it's my life. It changed my perspective, or it motivated me to take an action in certain area of my life that I've been procrastinating in, or I'm afraid to. Because to be honest, I might be embarrassed and afraid to talk about not being able to wipe my butt, bro. Back in the
Yeah.
day, you know what I'm saying? But I'm to a point in life where I'm telling you, I've been through everything that I feel like a man can go through, to where you feel like the most smallest thing on the planet. And I think going through that and being able to climb out of that and grow through that, there's literally nothing else in life that can bring me down. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
maybe somebody's listening to this and they're like, man, I'm going through the same thing and I'm afraid to talk about it. And I
Yeah.
feel embarrassed about it and I feel ashamed about it. There's nothing to be ashamed about, man.
Mm.
And you're going to develop that courage and that level of bravery. The more you talk about it, the more you get out there and tell your story and put out there and be vulnerable. I know a lot of people don't like to do that because you're basically the world, your weaknesses sometimes.
Yeah.
Well,
And
especially men do not like to show their weaknesses, and like, it's difficult to be vulnerable with people, especially like, because we all like that, that, hey, you got to be tough because you're
It's
a
that
man and everything.
machismo, man.
Yeah, yeah, you know what I mean.
especially
So,
especially especially Latin men, man. You
mm-hmm,
got a little in you.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
just we all got. It's you don't about that. It's like stuff you don't talk about. Like my pops, he's like 70, about to be 76, like 75. He don't talk about his feelings or
yep,
emotions. It's like everything's strong to the chest, and it's like
yeah,
now it's like it's okay. It's okay to talk about that stuff,
yeah,
and that's why I like the podcast. Me and Tony, one of the things we talked about is like kind of giving a voice to the voiceless, kind of, because people in our situations, like, we kind of get tossed to the side or like not really considered a part of, like, society. Like, it's hard for us just to roll around some places. Not everybody, not everywhere is accessible, or and that's why, like, when I see your page and like, and bro, like, you motivate me, like, because I see you, like, obviously situations are different, but like, I see the wheelchair, I see, I knew you Puerto Rican just by looking at you, and I see, you got your wife, you got your kids. Like, that's something that I strive for. Like how you said, like, I don't know if there'd be somebody who would want me, kind of thing. And then when you see you, it's like, yo, this guy went out here, did this. He's got. I didn't know you're married for fucking so long, man. I
yeah,
honestly,
yeah,
I
that's
honestly,
crazy.
I thought around my age, but man, you look great. And yeah,
thank
so
you.
just like makes me feel like, okay, there, like you said, there is hope. Like, you are a messenger of hope, and like I've been following your page like probably since, I don't even know, probably one of the first pages I followed after I got hurt. And yeah, no, I just want to thank you for coming on and sharing, because you almost had
Yeah.
me, you tearing up over there, almost got me tearing up.
I know.
Uh,
It's like, what is he
I'm
trying to
too.
bring on some waterworks right now?
I'm
I'm
like,
like,
I can't even, like, how it is. I can't even wipe my own eyes. Like, I was like,
I know, me too.
it's,
That's why I was trying to hold it in there because it's hard for me to wipe my own eyes,
oh,
bro.
bro, crying is rough. It's just like, I can't. I'm like, I can't see now. I'm just gonna podcast with my eyes closed. That's fine.
a lot
Yeah,
of times when we're talking to like guests on here, what I mean, it brings up a lot of emotion, you know what I mean? Because it kind of, when people touch upon, like, where they, go through life, and like, their different strategies on doing things and everything, it kind of like, brings back memories for us also. Like, so like when you started, just like you said, when you started getting emotional, it kind of brought me back to when I went through that dark time and going, this, sucks that this happened to me and blah blah blah, and seeing that place and then where I am now, it's so crazy.
yeah. I know. A lot of time, for me, where you got in accidents.
Yes,
Yeah, I had a diving accident, and
I was in a
Tona
motorcycle accident.
motorcycle accident.
Oh, okay. So you see that right there is most people, well, not a lot of people have that experience where they're in a wheelchair due to an accident. A lot of
Yeah.
times, that's what people think of me. They automatically like put me in that box, like, oh, were you military, or did
Oh,
you get into an
I get that.
accident?
I get the military all the time.
Yeah,
Thank you for your service. I get so many drinks. I'm like, I'm
exactly,
not even in the army.
Yeah, like it. No, thank you for your
exactly.
Yeah.
service.
Yeah, so I get all the time too, and so for you guys went from one extreme to the next, like right away, and
Yeah.
there really isn't any change after that, other than if anything else happens or it affected anything else, then you might experience a little change. But for me, it was like even up until now. Well, I'm gonna get to that in a minute, but even up until recently, my body is on a decline. Like the older I get, the weaker my muscles get because of that protein that I'm missing.
Yeah.
So it's
So
kind of like a button kind of thing, you know what I mean? Like
exactly, yeah,
going backwards.
exactly. So the
Yeah.
older I get, the weaker my muscles get because my muscles start dying off because there's no protein to feed them.
Mhm.
And so, but just another good on a good note, positive note for you, everybody listening or watching. Back in 2020, they approved the treatment for my condition, specifically for spinal muscular atrophy, and I didn't start taking it until 2022 because I'm old school. I'm 48, so I'm
Yeah.
old school. I'm like I want to wait and let other people try it, even though it's approved. Let them happens to
I'm the
them.
same way.
It's
Mhm.
like
I
buying the
give it a
second
couple.
generation the iPhone, bro.
Exactly. So I'm like, hey,
Just wait till they work out the bugs, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
yeah, and technically they're supposed to work out a lot of the bugs during the clinical trials, but so I was
Yeah.
even still after that, I'm a little skeptical, right?
Mhm.
So I'm pulling the trigger in 2022 and taking the treatment. So now I'm actually in another week I'll be celebrating my 3-year anniversary on the treatment. And so basically, what the treatment does, it's not a cure or anything like that, but it slows down the disease significantly from progressing.
Okay.
So the idea is that I should any more decrease from this point on, which is amazing. Like I'll take
That's
that all day, right?
yeah.
But and then on another note, there's so many advancements in medicine nowadays that they're actually it's in trial and it's in three, and hopefully it'll get FDA approved by the end of this year. But there's another medicine that they're coming out with that medicine with the medicine that I'm on now should actually see muscle growth and muscle strength.
Oh
So
shit.
yeah, and to be
Let's
honest with
fucking
you,
go.
Well, that's exciting
yeah,
right there. Mm.
yeah, man, it's exciting and it's motivating because I'll be honest with you, I never thought I'd be able to see a treatment in my lifetime.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And I know there's a lot of people that died from my condition because it's a rare condition, and there's 4 types of SMA. I have type 3. So type 3 and 4, those are typically the non-life threatening types. But type 1 and 2, those are more severe. And if
Yeah.
you had type 1, your life expectancy wasn't long at all. Like if you had type 1, you probably were dying between the first 12 to 15 months, maybe 18 months.
Mm.
And now
Wow.
a lot of these kids that are taking this medication, man, they're like 5 years old and they're crawling, walking, and running, which and wouldn't even meet any milestones. Like they wouldn't even be able to hold their neck up. They'd just be
Yeah.
like basically like vegetables. And now they're like crawling, walking, and running. So it's in a time that we're living in, and I'm excited. And I'm all in with everything I get into. I'm in with it. So I write books. My wife and I just finished writing a book together, and that's going to launch this year. But you can see in back of me, I have my best-selling book
Okay.
that I wrote several years ago. That Les Brown. I don't know if you guys know who Les Brown is, but Les Brown is one of the world's top motivational speakers on the planet. He
Hmm.
just celebrated his 80th birthday, and he's still rocking and rolling. So he wrote the forward to my book. He put me under his wing, coached me,
Oh,
mentored
that's
me,
awesome.
took me on a tour with him, and it was a dream come true. It was just a mystery when I think about it that I be in his presence because he's just such a great man and just done so many great things for the world.
Yeah.
And I say all of that, just to let your viewers and you know that listen, when you put your mind to something and you believe in it and you believe in yourself, you can make some amazing things happen. Because when I was young, growing up in the Bronx, New York, around drugs, and I was born in the '77, so the '80s, man. You ask people how the Bronx was in the
Hmm.
'70s and '80s, and it looked like the apocalypse hit. Like abandoned
Yeah.
buildings on fire, drug addicts, prostitutes everywhere.
Like
You know,
Iraq.
Yeah, crack
Mhm.
vials all over the floor, needles on the floor. So it was really, you know what I mean? But so I say that, if I was even, taking the whole wheelchair thing out of that, if you were born and raised in the Bronx or any of the boroughs through that time frame, and you man, you on the planet and beyond, because it was like it's like out there. But I think that that's what helped me also develop the tough skin that I have also,
Mhm.
with growing up and, people trying to bully me or make fun of me, which they really didn't get too far because, I wasn't no punk either, right? I always stood up for myself. I was the one like that stood up for a lot of the kids that were getting bullied. But, still people trying to make fun of you, the way I
Yeah.
was walking, whatever the case may be. But I'm just grateful that I had a good circle of friends always around me that protected me. I have family members that were, protective of me as well. So, like I said, I had a great life. I don't have any complaints, man, other than, this nasty condition doing what it did to my body. But I'm blessed, man. Like you said, I have a wife, I have kids, which able-bodied men don't have. You know what I mean? They are good at least, because you got to watch out nowadays with these
Uh,
men and women out here. They
oof.
crazy out here nowadays. But
Cameras.
my wife, rock star, man. I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing without her, to be honest with you, because she's the one who makes like a lot of this stuff happen in our lives. We're one, right? We're married, so we're one. But she's the one who gets me dressed in the bed every morning. She's the one who, before I got my electric ceiling lift, she was the one bear hugging me and put me in my
Oh
wheelchair.
shit.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
I met my wife, bro, and we were dating, she lived in a townhouse on the second floor. So she would pick me up in my van because she had her own car, but I had a car too that I just couldn't drive. But she would come to my house, pick me up in my minivan, put me in the van to her to drive, and then take my legs, swing them out, and then she would sit on the little step of the minivan. And I would fall on her back, and she would piggyback me up to her apartment on the second floor
What?
put me on the sofa, and we would watch movies, we would eat together and chill out, and then she would carry me back down, take me back home, put me in my bed, get me undressed, and then she would drive back home. And when she
So
started doing
love.
that,
That's the
I
one.
knew she was the one even before that, because when
Yeah.
before that time came, we would all go to the movies, like a group of friends of ours, and this was when those recliner chairs came out in the movie theaters.
Yeah.
And she was like, she saw that my boy used to always lift me up out of my wheelchair and put me into the chair so I can experience just like everybody else. So one day she was like, out of my, like, you sure? I'm pretty heavy. I'm skinny, but I'm pretty
Yeah.
heavy. You know what I mean? And she was like, no, I think I got you. And then bro, when I felt the power, the strength lifting me, like, bro, we even joke till now, because sometimes my boys in New York that were my friends, then they knew me before when I used to be able to walk, and now they'll come down and visit me, and they'll try to help out by putting me in the bed or putting me in the shower, and they'll try to lift me, and my wife starts laughing at them because she sees the way they struggle to handle me. And she's like, yo, are you kidding me? Your boys can't even handle you? I'm like, she be putting them to shame sometimes. But it's funny though,
Move
because,
out of the way. I'll do this.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, got a beautiful wife. I got two amazing children, and, we own our own home. I drive my own car with hand controls, and we have real estate investments. So it's like, I'm living the dream, bro. I
Yeah.
never thought I
It's
would be
amazing,
able to
man.
accomplish all of this, and here I am, like I'm living it. You know what I mean? And so that's why I come on these podcast shows, such as yours. When people reach out to me, I do them because I want to be that example to other people that I never had in my life. I didn't have anybody to tell me like, hey, I can relate to what you're going through because I'm going through it too. Like I know what
Yeah.
it is to like you said, you're like, oh yeah, I know about the whole butt wiping thing. Like I didn't have nobody to talk to about those
Yeah.
things. Number one, because I was embarrassed, but number two, I didn't know anybody like that. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So I know that a lot of people in the disability community, they want that camaraderie and within a community. So whether you have SMA or not, like if you're in a wheelchair, that we know the wheelchair,
Yeah.
right? The wheelchair is pretty much the same to a certain extent, right? Like I don't have a catheter. I know some other people do, but it's because my situation is different. I can still feel everything and I can still move everything. It's just weak, which is what atrophy means. It's weakening.
Yeah.
So I can still move my legs. I can still move my toes, my feet. Everything in my body works. And but as far as like the whole getting dressed and showering and using the toilet and transportation and things like that for wheelchair users, that's pretty much the same all across the board. We go through the same struggles when it comes to that accessibility and things of that nature.
Yeah.
But I'm grateful, man. I'm super grateful.
fucking motivating me right now, bro. So I see like you do a lot of traveling. If you have any, because me and Tony were actually just talking about that off air about traveling. Any places that you went, like you say, like one place that you've been to that you would recommend, like good accessibility wise, you had a good time, all
Yeah.
that.
So there's a couple places, man. But if you guys want to see some real amazing things, like I've been to the Niagara Falls in Canada is accessible and it's beautiful. Um, and it's very accessible. Like you can do a lot there that able-bodied people can do.
Yeah.
You can even zip lining. I've been there times, but they have a zip line now that if you have like arm strength, you can get on it. But because I
What?
don't, like I'm a daredevil. I like adventure? I like doing crazy things, But
Mhm.
my wife's always like, "Babe, what are you doing? Don't do that. No, I don't want you doing that. You can't do that." Da, da, da. And I'm like,
Like, babe, I
"All right,
got this.
yeah, yeah." But you can do zip lining there, and I'm saying like the views are amazing. That was one. We went to the canyon in Arizona.
Okay.
Beautiful and accessible as well. They have accessible paths. That's amazing. And then we went to Utah. Utah is also amazing as well. Very accessible. They got a lot. Even they have actually in Utah, you'll find the national. It's called the national. I think it's called the National Ability Center, and it's like the place where they have all the adaptive, or maybe it's National Adaptive Center, something like that. But it's
Yeah.
for people with different disabilities where you can do like rock climbing, cycling, kayaking, skiing, um, snowmobiling, like all type of sports, different sports that you can do that are adaptive for the disability community. So that's amazing.
That's what's up.
Arizona, Utah is beautiful also. But even outside the country, like I've gone to live in South Florida, so we do a lot of cruising. So we've been to probably almost all of the Caribbean islands.
Yeah, the
Uh,
cruises are the best. They're accessible. Cruises are very
yeah,
accessible, right?
cruises
Yeah.
are super accessible. So if you want to, anywhere they pamper you and they spoil you and it's all you all inclusive and accessible, I definitely recommend a cruise. My wife and I love cruises. We go every year. We're going on a cruise this year. We went last year. Sometimes we go twice a year. 2 years ago, we went for 2 weeks back to back on a cruise, and we just love it. It's amazing.
That's
And
what's up.
so you get the shows, they have the pools,
Everything.
the saunas, they have everything, man. And then you get to go to a couple of
Hmm.
different islands at the same time too. So that's super cool. So yeah, if you can do a cruise, that's awesome. But we went to this one island um, in Tortola. It's a British Virgin Island,
Okay.
and it wasn't. It was not really, but if you are in a wheelchair and you have somebody to lift you, or if you have upper body strength, then you can still have a good experience. If you are in a power chair and that's the only type of chair you can be in, then it probably won't be the experience for you. But like for me, I'm in a power wheelchair, but when I travel, I have a wheelchair that we take with us that I always bring because I know that a lot of these Caribbean islands aren't accessible. But when I get into that chair, then it's more accessible because a lot of times the locals, they'll lift me up and put me into a car or a van. Or a lot of times I'm with family, they'll just lift me up and put me into a car and a van. And then they'll fold up the chair and put it in the trunk or the back seat.
Okay. Okay.
So that works a lot. I do that often. You know what I mean? So like last year, I was able to go mudding for the first time in an ATV in the jungles of Dominican Republic with my wife, and so that was an amazing experience. That was the first time
What?
I did that, and it was because my son lifted me, put me in the little boat, strapped me in, and my wife was driving, and we were going through the river and going through the mud and all crazy dirty. Then when we got back, they hosed me down. I couldn't get into the shower. They had like,
Yeah.
yeah, but I just had to stay in the buggy and they just hosed me down. And that was a
A picture in my mind of
Yeah,
like
I
you
get.
outside and they're just like, all right, just stay still, sir. We're just
Yeah.
gonna spray you right, and you just getting like hosed, man.
Yeah.
basically.
Like throwing the powder on you afterwards. Like, yo, whoa, 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 whoa,
Try
whoa.
on it. We'll make it
It's
work.
a
Yeah, yeah,
Shawshank Redemption. What the going on
yeah,
right
right.
now?
But I'm down to go through, to get to experience. I'm down to go through little things like that if I have to. So
Yeah.
I've been parasailing in St. Thomas. I've been scuba diving and snorkeling in the Cayman Islands. I've been a bunch of things. You know what I mean? So I'm just sharing all of that, not to brag. So please don't take
No.
it like I'm bragging, for your audience. But I'm just saying it's like these things are possible, man. Like you can live
Yeah.
a great life, you can live a successful life, you can live a fulfilling life, and
Yeah.
you can live a comfortable life. So if
You're exciting our audience. You're not because like whenever
Uh,
guests talk about like travel and everything, it gets me excited. Like it makes me want
mm-hmm.
to like really like light a fire into my butt and like let's go. Let's. We talk about Utah actually because
The
I want to
Project
do some.
Airtime,
Yeah, that's what I want to do, man. That's something that's definitely in the bucket list. Like
what do you
I
want
need
to
to do
do?
that.
Utah.
Utah.
Project Airtime. It's in they take you paragliding, like it's
Like
all,
yeah, that looks dope.
and it's free. It's it's all, it's like
Yeah,
it was on HBO. That's how I saw it. And like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I actually had tickets to go out there and do it, but then something happened with the flight, so then I ended up flights like 6 hours. I was like, I ain't ready for that, so I ended up going to like Florida or North Carolina or something a little
Yeah,
easier.
yeah. Yeah, no, that's definitely good. Like when I was in Utah, I went in the summertime, so I was still able to ride the gondolas up the mountain and get the views in and everything, which was amazing.
Oh, okay, okay.
And they're accessible. But I want to go in the winter because they have adaptive skiing where you sit in like a snowmobile
Hmm.
and you control it with a joystick. You still have one of the attendants and just to make sure that you don't flip over anything. But my boy did it, showed me a video, and I was like, bro, if you do it, I definitely can do it. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want to go out there one of these winters and that, and there's so many things that we can do, man.
You ever done any skiing by any chance? Like what do you call
Skiing.
it? Yeah, you ever done any adaptive skiing by any chance?
Nah, but even in
So
South Florida, there's a spot where they do water skiing that's adaptive that I'm going to sign up for summer because they do it for free. Also, you just show up and they have people that'll ride out on the water with you with your life vest and everything. So I'm gonna do that. But were you going to
yeah, that
say
looks
something
good.
about the skiing?
So no. The reason I was going to say I forgot that you were in Florida. I thought you were still in New York. There's a program in New Hampshire that everybody keeps telling me to do, and eventually I'll do it. I just don't like snow. I'm not a big fan of snow. But like they're like, oh yeah, you need to check out the skiing thing, and I see it more often with a lot of people that I follow, and I'm just like, all right, I got to go try it one year. But I just like I said, I totally forgot we're in Florida. I was going to suggest that to you, but if you're ever in the Northeast again, you know what I mean. Maybe check that out.
Yeah, 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 for sure, definitely, definitely.
Then you have books right now. So you have another book coming out with your wife. You said coming out this summer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
What
yep.
what's what's this about? If you don't mind
So
me
it's a
asking.
marriage book. So we created a book. We wrote a book and we created a workbook with it, and we also created a journal/calendar with it as well, because we created like a 90-day program that can help marriages or couples that are struggling or on the divorce or going through a heavy challenge. We created this 90-day program that if they go through the program and they commit to it, they have a high chance of
Like
getting
success
things,
rate.
getting things in order, yeah, and
That's
making
all.
it happen. And we did it because we went through it. When we were like around year 7, I would say 6 or 7 around there, we were like bumping heads a lot. My wife is a very strong-minded individual, very opinionated as well, just like I am. And so when you get those type of personalities in the same room, you could bump heads a lot. But we there was a point where we were like, oh, I don't know if we could continue doing this like every day, all the time. And she actually went through the program on her own. So she, at the end of the 90 days, she basically took out a little journal pad that she was using because my wife journals and her cell phone. And she was like, me like, you know, on this day, this happened. On this day, this happened. Keeping track of it. Like, but she's keeping track of like the days we made love, the days that I did something nice for her, the day I spoke nice to her, the day that we both got into an argument, or maybe I treated her a certain type of way, or she treated me. Like, she kept a detailed journal of for 90 days. And at the end of the 90 days, it really touched me, bro, because I was like, yo, this woman went to the extent of writing everything down and tracking it
Yeah, that's
to for the sake of our marriage. You know what I mean?
you got a
And
real one, man.
man,
You
I'm
got
telling you that she's a breed, bro. They don't make them like that. No, we took like we didn't know it at the time. Like, she just did that on her own because she wanted to save her marriage, and she loved me and I loved her too. We just didn't know how to communicate properly about it. And so we didn't get no therapy. We didn't get no counseling. We just had a deep conversation after those 90 days that she did that on her own. And she didn't tell me she was doing that until afterwards. And she was like, look, I did this for 90 days and I did everything. Because, like in a lot of times in marriages, it's like, oh, well, if you're not doing this, then I'm not going to do that. And if
yeah.
you're not doing this for me, then I'm not going to do that for you. And so that's the type of vibe we were on. And so she like was showing me like for 90 days, I did everything you wanted from me, like everything you said that pleases you, whether it's, sexually or around the house or financially or whatever. I did those things, and I wanted to show you, like she changed through the process, and I didn't change until after the process, because when she showed me everything, like it really impacted me in such a way. I really love you and I want to be with you. I just feel like we're always bumping heads because we're not being able to, even though we talk, we were talking to get our to really listen and understand each other. And that happens a lot in relationships. And so we were able to like literally like talk about things, and we laughed and we cried, and I want to do better, and I'm praying to God, like, God, help me be a better husband, help me be a better father, help me be a better person. And little by little, I started seeing the change. And, if Puerto Ricans from New York, we tend to be aggressive anyway, right? That's just like the culture out there. Like, we're
just a little
aggressive.
bit.
Yeah, we're aggressive because we want to offend people, or we want to make people bad, but that's just how we talk. And when people talk to us like that, we don't get offended. We just match that same energy, and it's just all good at the end. We good. We don't have no problem with it. But my wife, she's born and raised in Florida, and she was always like, you talk to me so aggressively. Why do you talk to me like that? And in my head, I'm not doing anything wrong, because this is just me. This is how I live. This is how I grew up. This is normal for us. But then I started learning that we can't use how we grew up, the environment we grew up in, and the culture we grew up in to say, that's how I grew up, that's who I am, that's how I am. Because we can change. We are people of the capability of changing our circumstances and our thinking and our behavior. Again, and making those adjustments. I can be honest, like probably like right after that, like year 8 until now. So that's what, 17, 2007, like 8 years later, 9 years later, because we're 18. That was in 2008. So 18, 10. It's almost
17
it's
years.
almost 17. Yeah, it's almost 17 years, 15 years, something like that. Anyway, the point is that we live an amazing life now. Like, our marriage is amazing. And not to say that we don't still get disagreements and debates, right? Because we're both very smart and educated, but sometimes we have our differences of opinion, and we just agree to disagree sometimes, and that's okay too, right? But we have an amazing marriage because we talk about everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And a lot of times people don't like to talk about those things. And in order for you to have a successful marriage, you have to be able to. So anyway, that's the book that's dropping this year. It's called What Real Love Looks Like: How to Have It All, Even When You Don't Have It All. And you guys stay tuned for what the book cover looks like, because the book cover will match the title, and you'll see everything will make sense. But it's called What Real Looks Like: How to Have It All, Even When You Don't Have It All.
That's what's up, man. If when I get to that point, if I find a significant other, that book is coming on the shelf.
It's gonna be on your nightstand. What are you talking about?
I mean, all right, mate. It'll be on my nightstand. Yeah, you're right.
Journal right next to your bed, and journal and that.
Yeah, I'm gonna start a little dream journal. Fuck that.
All right,
That's awesome, man.
Thank you, bro. Yeah, man. So that, and then the modeling thing. Last year I was in New York Fashion Week.
Yeah, we were talking about that. I was like, oh,
yeah, we were talking a little about that before you came on.
And Hey Buddy, Hey Dude,
nice.
shoes, and then I had the Target. The Hey Dude shoes were actually sponsored by Hey Dude and Zappos, and I had the outfit was from Target, and the book bag was from Target. So, just being able to partner with Target has been amazing. And yeah, man, I just auditioned a couple weeks ago for a movie. They're gonna be, Judy Human, right?
Julie
From
Human.
Section 504 that you've been seeing on social media.
Oh yeah.
So she was like one of the founders of that movement, and they're making a movie about her life. So I auditioned for one of the parts in that movie. They're going to be actually filming it in Canada. So who knows, right? Hopefully I get it. If not, I'm still going to be trying. But I told my wife I wanted to start getting into acting and modeling. Modeling has already been checked off, which it's not like a one and done. I still want to continue to do that. But I'm to acting as well, because I think that I can. I have a great personality, a good sense of humor, and I think that I can play a role or two, maybe, down the line. So, maybe 50 Cent is watching your show. Hey, I'm down with something.
We got another Power Book coming out. We got the Power Book wheelchair edition. Like, what's up? Raising Jose. Like, fuck out of here.
I know, right? Hey, I'm down with anything, bro. So, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with that. That's going to be exciting. And again, it just goes back to putting myself out there. You know what I mean? You got to put yourself out there and be vulnerable and not be afraid to try things, man. You never know what can happen. I remember when I did the modeling thing, I applied the year before in 2023, and they declined me. And I was a little bummed out, but I was like, they were like, hey, but you know what? Try again next year. I was like, yeah, I sure will.
Yeah.
And so I tried again the following year, and then they wound up calling me and picking me. So I was like, all right, cool. Sometimes you got to stick with it. A lot of times we get
Yeah.
discouraged by the first no or the first not right now, and then we just give up on it. But you got to keep on. If that's something that you're passionate about and something that you want to, turn into a reality, then you got to keep on with it, because you'll get a whole bunch of no's before you get that one yes that can change your life.
That's
All
true.
it takes, man. One yes.
Yeah, you missed 100% of the shots you don't take, right? And
That's
right.
Mr. Michael Jordan himself said that. Down the quote. Yeah, no, I think that's great with the acting, because that's something that I always thought about. Just because now, like being in the disabled community, and it's very under in the movie TV world. Like if there's a movie guy who's paralyzed, they have like a famous actor trying to act paralyzed. Like it's like
Exactly.
it's not only is he acting, he's acting paralyzed, and he has to. It's just like you can't act like you. I feel like you need somebody who's actually in it.
Need
Because
to be more authentic with it.
yes,
You know
exactly,
what
more
I mean?
authentic. That's the perfect word I was thinking about. So that man, I'd watch a spin like a TV spin-off in there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a lot of movement in the industry highlighting
It's changing.
people with different disabilities. It's changing. Yeah, the landscape is changing, and our voices are starting to finally to being heard more loudly, because we're starting to band together and join together and sign these petitions. And I flew out to Capitol Hill 2 years ago. I'm going there this year again to do some advocating for accessible air travel. So I've been a part of that movement. And because of that, now Delta and United have these prototypes where hopefully at some
Yes.
point this year we'll be able to stay in our wheelchairs on
Oh,
airplanes. And then they're
please.
even working on having accessible bathrooms on planes also too. So there's a lot of things coming down the pipeline, and we have to keep the fight going. But for too many years and for too long we've been unheard, right? Invisible almost, and in the shadows. And little by
Yeah.
little, like the last, I would say 5 to 10 years, maybe we've been gaining some traction and some momentum in
Some waves.
film and travel and everything, making some waves. Exactly. But it's like,
Mm-hmm.
you make noise long enough, eventually somebody will hear you. And so
Yeah.
Yep.
that's what we just got to keep doing. We got to keep making noise and fighting for the right things. And we're gonna see those things, and little by little it's happening. So I'm excited, man, and we're living in some great times. I'm excited to be, I felt like when I was younger, I was afraid to fight for what I knew was right because of my condition. And
Hmm.
so a lot of times I would stay quiet. And now that I've been able to develop this level of bravery and courageousness, I don't have a problem letting my voice be heard. I don't have a problem standing on the forefront and leading a charge, even if I needed to, because if people like me and other people that have done, like the lady Judy Human, who they're doing the movie about her, if she wouldn't have got with her group of wheelchair dudes and stood in
Yeah.
front of the Supreme Court in California, we would have never saw the ADA Act enacted in 1992 or 93, I think it was. But she even did that back in 1970, 1978, if I'm not mistaken. That was when that Section 504 was established, that said that all government buildings have to be accessible
Mm-hmm.
for people with different disabilities. And so that was the movement, the ADA Act,
Yeah.
almost 20 years later. And here we are now, another 30 years, 20 years later, and we're seeing even more traction. So it's happening, even though it's going very slowly. It is happening. We just need to happen a little more quickly. So we have people in wheelchairs that are in Congress that are helping us keep the fight going also. So that's good news. And then we have different organizations like the MDA organization, and I'm a part of the QSMA organization. It's the largest SMA organization in the world. And they partner with a lot of other companies like MDA also to make these things happen and get these petitions signed and then make this noise up in Congress. And when I went 2 years ago, you should have seen it, man. It was like a bunch of wheelchairs just taking over the Capitol, right? They thought January 6th was crazy. We were out there with wheelchairs tearing up DC too, but for the right reasons, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's what's up. So that Julie, that's you seen that documentary on Netflix, the camp. I what she if you go on Netflix, it's called Crypt. It's like it shows like the first, like they have like a little camp where it was like all people with disabilities, and that's kind of where they came up with that idea to where they went to California and they went and they started with the ADA. It's real good if you get a chance to
Hey,
that out. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
I haven't checked it out, but I definitely will because I like watching stuff like that. I like to
it,
be informed. You know what I mean?
yeah, because she just passed away recently, right? I think.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
in
yeah.
2023 she passed away.
She did so much for the
Disability.
disability, not even or just the world in general. Just like
Yeah.
she left an impact. She left a mark. That woman.
Yeah. So yeah, man, like I said, that's why I fire with everything I do because I always want to do everything with a spirit of excellence and high quality, and we're capable of doing that. Not the disability community, we don't get the credit that we deserve because we are intelligent and brilliant people. We're smart and we have so much talent within ourselves that we have a lot of value that we table. And so, I love this quote that says, um, you know, people won't want to bring you to their table until they start seeing you eating at another table. So in other
Yeah.
words, it's like,
Yeah.
and I know it to be true because like even when I started my speaking career, everybody, man, I couldn't even speak for free sometimes. Like trying to let me come to the organization or the event and speak for free. They were like, "Oh no, you're good."
It's like, nah,
And but
okay.
now that they see me speaking for companies like Caribbean, all of these different major companies, now people are like,
Now they
"Oh, you
see you.
work for them? Oh yeah, hey, we want you to come speak for us." And I was like, "Oh, but when I was asking you if I could speak for free, you ain't even want to hear me."
Yeah,
Yep.
So I
not.
have this thing that I do. I was like, "You didn't want to speak. You didn't want it. You didn't want me when I was free."
Oh, I
Yeah,
like that.
I
Oh
like that.
yeah.
Put See, Tony, we get T-shirt quotes
I know, dude.
with
We
every
are definitely
episode.
building some quotes up. That's
Yeah,
for sure,
we
man.
gotta have a sitting tall podcast quote line, bro.
Yeah. I feel
Every
like
episode.
every one of it comes up. Our guest comes saying that we really like and we really like cling on
Yeah,
to it, and we've been saying for a little while that we're going to take those quotes and put them on shirts and bring them out there because there's a lot of great quotes from you guys. Every time we're talking to
yeah,
somebody, I'm like, oh man, I need to put that on a shirt.
Man, you guys should do that, man. There's companies that you can sign up with. I don't know if Shopify or one of them companies, but you can. It's basically a print to order, so you don't even have to
Yeah,
buy inventory. You just come up with the design and put it
yeah.
out there, and then they'll print it and ship it and everything. So if that's something that you guys, it sounds
That's
like
like
that
that
could be,
custom ink thing.
I
yeah,
definitely
Yeah.
think it's in our future. That's for sure. I think
Oh
it's
yeah.
something we need me and Casey talk about. That's for
yeah,
sure.
man, for real. And listen, you start a website with that, and you start to market and promote it to the disability community. I'm telling you, the disability community is a very supportive community from what I've seen so far. Because I just recently plugged into the disability community, probably in 2021. So
Hmm.
that's just like 4 years
Yeah,
ago.
that's new. Yeah, yeah.
Before
Fresh.
that, I wasn't up because I never really felt disabled, and when I would plug into the community, there was some people that were passing away, and it was kind of like depressing and negative, and I just couldn't deal with that, so I stayed away from the SMA community. But then in 2021, when I found out these treatments were available, I said, and maybe it's time for me to re-plug in and see what's going on with this. And look at now the treatment. Now
Yeah,
I'm on the advisory board for Cure SMA, and
the other treatment coming out too now. You got
yeah,
yeah.
we're doing so many amazing things. I'm on the board. I'm on the board with. I'm an ambassador. A lot of them, but
Uh,
I'm
wear
excited.
wear a lot of hats.
Titles,
He wear a lot.
titles.
Jose he wears lots of hats. He wears lots of
Yeah.
hats.
Yes, I do. But it's
I
fun. You
mean,
know what I mean? It's
that's a
fun.
driven
Yeah,
man right there. You know what I mean?
yeah.
That's
Know
what
that
I love about it.
you're living a full life, and that's all we could do. All we want to do is just we want to
That's
be
right.
included too. That's it. We just
Yeah,
don't count us out just because
that's
you might,
right.
you know, what they say, the book by a cover kind of thing. Don't do that.
Yep, yep.
Tone, I know we kind of hit it off around this time. You good, Tone? We got anything
Yeah,
else
no,
you
I'm
want?
good, man. I think he spoke about like every question that was going through my head, you answered it yourself because you kept going. Like I said, I love that.
I
I
love
love
it.
that when guests do that because like I'm like, oh, speak the truth, man. Speak it out, man. I love that. And so like, thank you for just coming on the podcast and shining your light, man. Like I said, I appreciate you, and I hope I can't wait to see what the book come out and like what future plans are for you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Maybe when the book comes out, we could do it again and have my wife on this time, and we
Boom,
could do it
done.
together. So that's
Say
one of my plans is when the book
say
comes out,
less.
we could probably go on a podcast tour and reach out to every podcast I've ever been on and get on it again with my wife and promote the book because this going to be a powerful,
Um,
life changing book for a lot of people because we believe that if we can help repair family, I mean, if we can help repair marriage, then we're
that's
in essence keeping keep helping to keep a family together.
together.
And I don't
Yeah.
know about you guys, but my wife and I, we come from broken homes,
Mm-hmm.
and just like a lot of other people do, and and there's no reason why we can't keep family, stay together, and I know we live in some strange times right now where, marriage isn't really looked at like how it was back in the day. You know what I mean? Like,
not as sacred as it used to
yeah,
be.
exactly. Even back in the day, families were going into different situations, and they would never get divorced, but they honored their commitment, and nowadays, people don't want to get married and they're fine with just shacking up and, being friends with benefits, if you will, and, or just living together and just, in their mind and their heart, they feel like they're married, but they don't want to go through the whole sacred part of it, which is making the
Yeah,
commitment, right? Because a lot of people are like, oh, what's marriage? It's just you just sign a paper, but it's more than that.
yeah,
You're making a covenant, not only between you and but between you and God, saying that I'm going to honor this covenant of marriage, and we're gonna stick through this for the times, bad times, and sickness and health vows that we take. And there are a lot of people break a lot of times. If my wife feel like we can help those vows and stick to those vows and then keep the family together and work through problems. Like we're gonna, the thing is that you can go from one relationship to another, but if you didn't change, you're just bringing that same old energy, those
yep.
same vibes, those same
Hmm.
baggage to your new relationship. And it might be okay for a couple months, but when your habits and your behaviors start to display themselves again, you're going to see yourself in the same situation, or maybe your partner will
Yeah,
be, in a different type of person or a different behavior. And you'll be bouncing from relationship to relationship. And that's what I'm saying is like, and we have the capability of, I'm sure if Casey, you and Tony got into an argument about something, you could actually, it could be that you could be like, oh, screw you, forget it, we ain't doing this podcast no more, and you go your separate ways. But I'm pretty sure that you have the level of maturity to say, yo, hey, let's sit down, let's have this conversation, let's figure it out. How we could, fix this, and let's see how we can continue to be mutually beneficial for the both of us, right? And you have that mature adult conversation and you figure it out. Like any relationship should be able to do that, not just marriage, but any relationship, right? If
yeah,
you cherish it, if you love it, if you appreciate it, like the way you say you do, then let's fix this. Let's figure out a way to get out of this rut that we're in and happen.
True.
couldn't
Yeah.
said
But
it
what the
perfectly.
problem is that takes work.
Yeah,
And the
Yeah.
people don't want to do the work, man. People do not want to work nowadays.
everybody wants the easy road, man. No matter what, relationships, work, careers, nobody wants to put the work in anymore, and that's
Yeah.
true.
They want
And
the dream, but they don't want the.
yeah, exactly, that is true.
So, but anyway,
Well,
guys, I appreciate you so much for having me.
dude,
I had a blast with you guys, man. Continue doing what you're doing, because believe me when I tell you, somebody out there is going to listen to this and be like, "Yo, thanks for having this guy on, and thanks for your podcast for bringing on different people." How often do you guys launch your show?
we usually put an episode out like once a month. We release an episode once a month, and
Yeah, pretty much when we can get, like, cause a lot of times we work around guest schedules and everything like that.
yeah,
But we're definitely, this year, I feel like we're definitely pumping more out there, and like we, like to do it as many times as possible as we can. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But right now
Yeah,
it's
nah, for sure. So yeah, keep doing what you're doing, man. I'm telling you, it's gonna touch somebody's life, man. And sometimes people get wrapped up in the likes and the follows and the comments and all of that. But
yeah.
if if
We don't focus on that, man. We have followers, like we have people. I like to do it, and I feel we like this is like therapy for us too. Like on the so we get to talk, we get to meet other people who are going through similar or different situations. We get to share. Like I love being able to share other people's stories.
oh
Like
yeah
I'm glad, like, you're gonna reach some people that you never even thought you talk to before. Now, our podcast is gonna get viewed by your followers, so it's like I love the sharing of it all, and it feels good to like give you because we all want to be heard. Like we all have a story, and if your story could hit one person that listens, that's all that matters. I'm good. If we affect one person,
yeah we're
ta-
happy with that. That's why I said we love
check it
doing
off
this.
the box. Check it off the
yeah,
box.
that's the love it, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, but yeah, so just want to thank you again for coming on the episode. Shout out to our sponsors, Seven Bros Apparel. Thank you always for hooking us up. And as you can see, Tony's beautiful hoodie he has on today.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, so
I also
oh
wanted to tell you and this as well. I believe in the power of showing up. So everybody who's listening to this podcast and stayed to the end, as a thank you for showing up, if you go to my website, joseinspires.com, scroll to the bottom, there's a little subscribe button, and there's a couple freebies in there if you're a business. And I'm going to keep filling that up with some freebies. Right now, I think there's only two. There's one analysis that I created, but then like a 25, 30 minute MP3 that you can download for free on a talk that I gave on the showing up. It's also one of the chapters in my book. So if you go down, you subscribe, and you'll get an email sent right to your inbox for you to be able to enjoy that. So thank you again, and I appreciate you.
Hell yeah! If you stay for the hour, baby, you get some free stuff.
Yeah.
So this is us. Thank you again for watching Sitting Tall. We'll catch you next time.
Next time.